think I have one in my purse.
Now you're official.
Now I'm official. Okay. I am going to call the Election Center Commission to order, and it is 1:07 p.m. And if I could have roll call, please.
Joyce Anderson,
Here.
Cynthia Hawkins,
Here.
Elaine Nelson,
Here.
Glennis Ireland,
Yes.
Pat Abney. I did not hear back from Pat Abney regarding this meeting, and it is my understanding she is out of town.
Okay. And we do have a quorum. Okay. Any old business? Seeing none, we'll move right into new business, which is review of the Ordinance 2020-131 amendments to Title 28, which basically has to do with elections. So as you can see, I did go through it with my little notes. So why don't we start on page 1? I guess what I would like to do is open it up for discussion from the commission members. Do we need to go through each section, or should we just go through sections that maybe there were questions? I have some comments saying this is a good addition, and different things like that. So if that's okay.
Madam Chair, I would like to just have a brief discussion or advice, not advice, but information on what the intent was for the changes.
If staff could respond to that, otherwise I could as well. So go ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. So,
And state your name, please.
I'm Erica McConnell. I'm the Deputy Clerk for Elections.
Okay.
It is standard for us to continually review the code to make sure that it is functioning as we intend it to function, and also every time we go through an election, sometimes there's a situation that we go to the code to look at and we realize the code is either not as clear as it needs to be, or maybe doesn't even say what we expect it to say. And so that leads us to do a review after each election, and at times to request updates from the Assembly. And I think particularly because we're still only a couple years away from our transition to vote by mail, we're still finding ways in which we can update and improve the code to better reflect our goals and our processes.
Okay, thank you. I'd also like to say, too, I think I caught a couple in here where changes that were made in the code previously were not caught in particular sections. So I think it's also a time to look at the code to say, oh, wait a minute, we took that word out, so we're not going to use it anymore. So I did pick up a couple of those. The other thing I'd like to say is that the climate of democracy right now has been tested and stressed. And so I feel this is a very good way to also look at the code in relation to what has been going on across the country with different state election offices and things that have been brought up and so forth. So I'm happy that the Assembly is looking at this, and I'm sure Barbara initiated it, and that we get a chance to look at it. So, any other comments? All right. I'm just going to start with section 1 because, like I said, I had some comments, and I think it would be nice to get them on record that the Election Commission, and then I'll ask for agreement, is in agreement with my comments. I know under A that the clerk shall supervise all municipal elections, but really prepare for and conduct. So I think that's really great that you added that in there. Yeah. It just really does say more than just supervise. It's that the clerk's office really is the one that is conducting the election, is preparing for it and so forth. I like the second one as well. And I think that's very important based in the climate that we have right now. So I like that one as well. So those are my 2 comments. Any comments from commissioners on that at all? Okay.
I think those are strong comments, and they should be in there. They should be inserted.
Yes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about them, and then I'm going to ask if there's any comments. And if there isn't any comments, then I'm going to assume everybody is in agreement, and I really don't feel we need to vote unless the commission feels we need to vote on each one.
No, I like the discussion.
Yes, okay. So on the next page, and I don't know, is it Erica?
Yes.
I don't know, Erica, what is the actual process for it, but I've never heard of the term MUOCAVA, which is explained in there. So I am wondering, whenever we've done that in other groups and organizations that I'm part of, we've capitalized. So I'm wondering if it's possible to capitalize the municipal and the uniform and the overseas and the citizen so that people realize, even though that's what it says it means, is it possible to capitalize each of those words at this point? I just feel that makes it a lot more easier to understand. I mean, I read that twice because I kind of went over that part and missed it. So that would be my suggestion.
Madam Chair, I'll certainly request that be done. I know that the legal department has certain standards.
That's what I'm saying, but I
Yeah,
don't know.
sure.
I don't know. Usually the first time it's mentioned, they do that, and then they don't do it afterwards because they're using the acronym. So that would be my suggestion.
Citizens, and I think should it be citizen or citizens?
Municipal, uninformed, and or uniformed. Uninformed. I like that. Okay. You can tell I'm kind of from trying to get here. And overseas citizens absentee voting act voter. Overseas citizens.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
So, UOCAVA, the UOCAVA, comes from a federal act which has that title and creates certain laws allowing or relating to the voting of people who fall under this definition. And so I think that's from where you get the sort of generic absentee ballot that can be used in federal elections. So we borrowed this term in order to take the definition.
And just put municipal in front of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I will double check that there is an S on the end of citizens, but again, we just took this term from federal law.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Any other comments about that one? Okay. And going down the page, I really feel that it was so important to put who meets the legal requirements instead of qualified, because what does qualified mean? You know, in a way. So I can see, like I said, I think what they did was kind of update and make things more clear. So I like that as well. I also think on the I don't have anything comment on the next one, but the ones where it says voter declaration means a statement. I like that one. A statement of the voter qualifications listed below, to which a voter swears or affirms under penalty of unsworn falsification by their signature or mark. So that definitely is a little bit more clarifying than what was on there before. So I don't have any issues with that. I also see on the next page that you've updated some references to different parts of the Alaska statutes as well as maybe other things, so I think that's very important. I do think that the rest of the stuff that's on this page has made things a little bit cleaner. I do have one question under number 6. Why do we say primary election? Why was primary election in there before?
Madam Chair, I wish I could answer that question. I actually have no idea.
Because primary just means different than what we have. Primary means more like the state.
Right.
I was just asking that because
it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense, and anyway, okay, we're good. Okay, on page 4, under C, I do think the word absentee needs to be removed because it's been removed every place else in this ordinance, and they're now called by mail ballot application. So I think that should be taken out. Is everyone okay with that? I'm doing a consistent of terms. Okay. And if you could explain a little bit about the time and method for elections. I know that they took the time frame out, the 30 days, the 45 days, and they're saying by adoption of a resolution. Is that what the Assembly was suggesting?
So, Mr. Gates, the Assembly's legal counsel, worked a lot on this section. So there's 2 significant changes. One is, how does the Assembly call a special election? And so the answer is by resolution.
Okay.
So this is putting sort of the vehicle for calling the special election, making it clear what is it that the Assembly, how do they actually do the call? They adopt a resolution that calls for it. The other thing is the timing.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of dates, or time periods that are set forth both in charter and in code relating to various types of elections. And 30 and 45 days conflict with those in some situations. For example, notice of a special election has to be published 30 days in advance. Published in a newspaper of general circulation.
Right.
So you can't just be like, publish this today, because the assembly just called for a special election in 30 days.
I see.
So there's a conflict there. So really, any time that the assembly desires to call a special election, they really have to go back to the charter and the other sections of code to make sure that they can meet all of the other deadlines that are set in there, such as when the candidate filing period for a vacancy occurs, and calling for a notice, and if it happens to be about a initiative, things
Sure.
that relate to the initiative.
So it's taken out because it's in other areas and it really is, like you said, conflicting. Okay, I was just curious what the reasoning was behind
I
that.
just had a comment. If it's going to be published in a newspaper, and our newspaper sometimes doesn't come out, it doesn't come out on a Saturday. What if that period falls within, that Saturday?
So the requirement is at least a certain period of time.
At
So if
least,
the exact
okay.
period of time falls on a Saturday, we would do it the day before.
Friday, okay. Just observation.
Okay.
Thank you.
I had no questions or comments on page 5. Did any of the commission members? Okay. I really had no comments on page 6. On page 7, I am good. I don't think that really changes anything. It's just sort of moving some words around is what I think on there. I didn't have any comments on page 8. Any commissioners? Okay. On page 9. Give me just 1 second here. Okay, so I see under C, where a vote accessible or vote centers, so they've clarified in here that it's 7 days prior to a regular and special election, and 5 days prior to a runoff election. Okay, and that makes sense to me as well. So I guess I had my comment here and I couldn't figure out what I said. So, okay, on page 10. So the word poll watcher has been changed to observer. And precinct's been changed to polling location since, we have the vote centers and everything. So that makes perfect sense. Again, that looks to me like a clarification of what's going on. Okay. On page 11, I do have a question under C1. What does this mean when it says place, and this wasn't a change, but I was just reading it. Place the ballot return envelope in the mail, postage paid. That's us, right? Is that?
No. That sounds as if it's being
paid by the city?
Union or state.
Right, that's why I said place the ballot return envelope in the mail, which means it's already been voted. Not the ballot package.
I would take that comment. I mean, if it were us paying for the postage paid, envelope. This, I think, is.
Do you think it's clear? I don't know, it just seemed unclear to me, but maybe it was just me.
Now, did they come out, did we pay, or did the community pay for the?
No, we had to pay.
Okay,
We're
that's
paying
okay.
our own. So,
Mhm.
and it says that, that we're placing it and then putting it into a return envelope and then do one of the following. So, place a ballot return envelope in the mail. Maybe it should say with postage instead of postage paid. I just feel postage paid means you're paying it, I mean, it's a picky point, but sometimes, and I've been watching a lot of the hearings that have been going on, with the other states, what they call the the big states that are doing all the whatever. And my experience being in elections all my life, even in Minnesota, so I guess I have a problem with that term. So you could make a recommendation and see what they say, but I think it should say, it shouldn't say postage paid. It should say, place the ballot return envelope in the mail with postage. That would be my suggestion. Okay.
Yeah, it makes it more clear.
Okay. Does that make sense to you, Cindy?
Well, only that the second sentence, the following sentence, clarifies that nothing will be accepted that doesn't have postage,
Mm-hmm.
which I guess goes back to,
Right. And like I said, it's just a little picky thing. Yes, Erica?
Thank you. So, the reason that we were making a change to this section, unless required by law, is because the post office actually does deliver ballots where there's insufficient or no postage on them. They deliver them to us, and then they charge our mail permit.
Right.
Now, we put in unless required by law because we thought that was a federal law, that the federal law requires the post office to return ballots whether or not they have postage. That turns out not to be true. It turns out that it is a USPS policy to do that. So we are actually working on an amendment to this section, which is basically going to say we will not pay, the municipality will not pay any charges greater than, for a particular envelope, greater than first class postage for that particular envelope.
Okay.
So, and I do think that you've caught some, the postage paid, I do think that is unclear, and
I do.
think that
Um,
an amendment there would be useful.
Okay, well, that was kind of my point there. I know it's under that section, but if you were to read that all by itself, it just kind of jumps out at you, even though you know they're talking about the voters. So I'm just, I apologize, but I'm a little picky. So that's my point. Okay, and on the next page, I just have a question for Erica, and I don't know whether you can answer this or not, but the addition under number 2 there says that the municipal clerk may provide the voters' information to law enforcement under section da-da-da-da. They decided to put may in there instead of shall.
Yes, from what I understand, Barbara has had experiences where a person may have returned, like say a person who lives in, an older person living in an assisted living center, they return their ballot by mail, and then on election day, their child comes and takes them to the polls, and they've forgotten that they voted.
I understand perfectly.
In that particular situation, there's no need to refer that to law enforcement. It was clearly a mistake. The person forgot.
Right.
The use of the word may is so that the clerk can use her judgment to evaluate each particular situation. And if it seems that there was clear intent to commit fraud, that would get forwarded to law enforcement. But if it was clear that it was an accident, then there would be no follow-up with the law.
All right, that sounds great. And I really shouldn't say this because it's on the record, but I forgot to put a stamp on my return ballot envelope. And I put it out in the, we have the mailbox, we put the flag up, and I put a bunch of things out there, and I was sitting at home, and and the mail carrier had already been there, and I said to my husband, oh my, and I won't say what word I used, oh my God. I said, I forgot to put postage on mine, and I'm on the election commission. Are they going to send it back to me or what? And then I did check with Barbara, and it was counted. So, I felt so bad because you're telling everybody to put postage on, and you know what I mean? I just ran out with all my mail, and there it was. So anyway, I just thought I'd share that with you because that's the story about, this person voting and then going with their family. I perfectly understand that. So anyway. All right. Any other comments about those? Okay. I have no comments on page 13. And page 14, I see that you are using the same language that we just talked about briefly in B that we used on page 11, so pretty consistent. I looked at that. That was consistent. Have we used, I want to go back to page 13. Have we used the, under the last heading, designated return location? Have we used that before? I just don't remember that. the heading where it says receipt of ballots at designated return location.
Madam Chair, I don't remember where the first time that term is used, but it is intended, I believe, to apply to the election center.
I mean, it's not new, because it's not,
Yeah.
new in
Yeah.
here, but I just didn't, okay, I didn't catch that before. Okay. Any comments from commissioners on page 15? Or 16?
Just going back to 14 because it's a general, this is Cindy Hawkins speaking, is the language that we continue to have that relates to the use of voting machines.
And where does it say that?
Well, they talk about the seals so for instance, the bottom of page 13, if applicable, receive the voting machine from election officials working at the polling locations. We don't really have polling locations anymore. We have
Vote centers?
vote centers, but there's language throughout the document. And I guess my general question is there a reason why we are reserving that possibility of going back to polling locations and machines?
That's a very good question.
Through the chair, Ms. Hawkins, the Title 28 does continue to contain language that would allow an election to be a poll-based election instead of a vote-by-mail election. Why that choice was made to sort of retain both instead of dump one, I am not exactly sure.
Okay, I didn't catch it. Did you see it in other parts of the?
Yeah, well, no, I think this is where it really becomes evident.
Okay. Because they're talking more about vote centers, but I can see what you're saying about polling locations, so, okay.
Now, could we go back to, polling, I mean, not by mail, but, go back to the polls? Or is this definite mail only voting?
Well, it's my understanding, Erica, that the Assembly did vote to conduct elections vote by mail. So I think the Assembly would have to go back, I don't know that for sure, but Erica's shaking her head. The Assembly would have to go back and say, now we're going to go and do polling locations, polling places. Okay. Well, that was a good question, Cindy. Okay. All right. I think we were on page 16. So we already looked at 14 and 15. I don't have any comments. I do like the fact that they took out accessible vote center and just used vote center. I mean, that makes perfect sense. I mean, I think that's a wonderful change. On page 17, I have a comment about in the middle of the page where it says acknowledgement that a marked or unmarked ballot sent by fax or email. Do you feel, I understand we're talking about the qualified voter, but do you think it's worth putting in after the word acknowledgement, to put in acknowledgement by the qualified voter that a marked or unmarked ballot sent by fax? Because in the top one, we're using the word qualified voter, and I would think that we could use the word qualified voter in the second, in B as well. Do you see where I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So I guess my suggestion would be acknowledgement by the qualified voter that a marked or unmarked ballot sent by fax, and I love the fact we're going to use fax instead of facsimile, a fax or email is less secure than a ballot cast by mail or in person in acceptance of this risk. Does that make sense to anybody, or do you think I'm just being picky again and repeating what we're saying?
Let's just clarifying it a little further.
I feel it is, because we're talking about voting by fax or email, and we're talking about a lot of things in here. Erica, what did you think about that?
So I wanted to look at the rest of that section. to
Right, because
make
we only have the
sure-
certain part of it, yeah.
Yeah, so 28 60060A says, you know, a qualified voter may apply.
Mhm.
And then number 1 says, any request received at least 7 days before election day shall be processed. Requests received after this time may be processed subject to availability. 2A2 says the municipal clerk shall not satisfy requests received after 5 p.m. Alaska time on the day before the election. And then B, in order to receive a ballot, the request must include 1, the applicant's first, middle, and last name and the residence address. 2, the Alaska residence address of the voter. 3, the method for receiving the ballot. 4. So I think it's pretty clear that this is a request from the qualified voter, but I think if you wanted to sort of emphasize that, I would recommend putting request by the qualified voter up in B rather than just in number 8, because you actually have 8 different things. That have to
Oh,
be
that makes
included.
perfect sense. I would suggest that.
Right.
Because in that way, because when I realize we only have certain parts of each section that are being changed, but, okay, acknowledgement by whom, so to speak. Okay. All right. Okay, any other comments on that one? Okay, on page 18, under number C, we've got postmarked, you know, on or before election day and received from a, and I don't know how you would say that, whatever that acronym is, Muakava or something?
Yep, no problem.
Okay, great. Voter no later than noon on the day of the certification of the election. What does that mean for the election commission?
So
Because
that- normally
normally it's not noon on the day of the certification. And I know that later on that you have changed that, that the results are approved by, you know, the assembly or whatever words you're using. And I thought that was great, but then I wondered, what does that mean for us? Does that mean we need to be there as the commission?
So, as you all know, generally the public session of canvass that you preside over happens 2 Fridays after the election,
Right.
and then certification is the following Tuesday.
Correct.
So by giving these overseas voters essentially 4 extra days for their ballot to arrive, that would mean that the election commission, the number of accepted ballots would potentially be a little bit off, that we may get additional ballots received between that Friday and the following Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
If there were any problems with those ballots, I actually don't know what would happen in that situation. If we received a ballot that, say, wasn't signed,
Right.
generally only the election commission can reject that ballot. So I think that's a,
So it sounds like it's a possibility we would have to meet depending on what comes in at that time frame.
Yeah.
I just wanted to bring that up to the commission because when I read that, that's what jumped out at me. I mean, I would think all of them would be okay. But that's me, that's just thinking it would be, you know.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
all right,
what-
so just so the commission's aware that maybe we might have to meet that day if there was one that was rejected. Okay, all right. As you can see, I kind of went through this, anyway. Under G, I have a question. I think where you say fax and email, wouldn't it be fax or email? Someone is certainly not faxing and emailing. So that was something I picked up there. That was new language. I think it should be an or. Is the commission all in agreement with that? Okay. All right. Okay, on page 19, I guess I would ask for the change of observation to viewing. Do you have anything on that, Erica, at all?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Because an observer is a very particular term used in this code, an observer has to be associated with a candidate or a campaign.
Correct.
They have to go through a training, they are given a very particular lanyard, and then they are allowed to get much closer to the election action than the regular public. We were a little concerned about sort of confusing the public's rights, because here in the election center, the public has to stay on the yellow brick road versus an observer who is allowed to go off the yellow brick road and see other things. So we were trying to change that word just so there was absolutely no ability to confuse the rights of the public with the rights of an observer.
Okay. I'm taking something because I'm talking too much, so my throat's getting dry. I assume that's what the reason was, but I wanted an explanation because being the viewing and being an observer has been really in the forefront also of what's going on with this election. So I feel that this is a really good change to make it clear that they're sort of two different entities or two different groups. So, okay. Page 20. Does anybody have any comments or anything? Okay. On page 21, I had a comment, but we've already answered that, so I have no comments. Page 22, does anybody have any comments? Or 23? Okay.
I'd like to, excuse me.
Go ahead, Cindy.
Yeah, Cindy Hawkins. I guess I just want to clarify the strike through at the bottom of the page on page 22, the invalidation of that particular vote in the example. I'm not familiar with that kind of a strike through.
Through the Chair, Ms. Hawkins, the illustration with the diagonal line is getting rid of that picture in favor of the picture above it.
Okay.
You can just see that it has the top, John Doe, Mary Smith has the word race. So it's essentially the same picture, but it's just a little more consistent.
Okay.
So that's getting rid of that picture.
Thank you.
Okay. I know I looked at that too, and then I thought, I'm not that familiar with what you do when you do that part of it. So. Okay, page 23, no comments? Okay. On page 24, under G, where it says within 30 days of certification of the election, the municipal clerk shall mail a notice of ballot rejection to each voter whose ballot return envelope was rejected. The notice shall state the reason for rejection. I thought that was something we already did, but it was never in code.
It is something we do, and it's in D.
Oh,
but
okay.
It actually doesn't have a time limit in D.
Oh, okay.
So the changes in this section, with the exception of adding the vote of the election commissioner is final, it's just sort of reorganizing and making it a little bit more clear.
Okay.
And then adding that time limit to send those rejection letters.
Okay, well, that makes perfect sense then to divide that up. Because basically the vote of the election commission's finals is really all that we do. Okay, all right. Any questions or comments on page 25? On page 26?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
If I could just let you know, another amendment that is going to be brought forth is the removal of C2 as redundant to C1.
On which page are we?
On page 26.
Oh. C1 and
So-
C2?
So the idea here was that C1 would be candidate A beats candidate B by less than 0.5%, and the idea behind number C2 was that candidate A gets 45.2% of the vote, which is less than 0.5% over. It's actually a threshold, not a margin.
Okay.
But the lawyers have decided that if a candidate gets 45.2% of the vote, that qualifies as winning by less than 0.5% margin, and so it would fall under C1, and thus C2 is not necessary.
Okay, so that's going to be taken out.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And on the top of page 26 is what I was talking about earlier when I mentioned that within 7 days after, and it says the certification of the election, versus the election commission has adopted the report. So that's pretty consistent with what I mentioned a little bit earlier, and I think that's a very good clarification. Okay. Okay, any other comments on page 26? No? Okay. Page 27. Again, they've just been consistent here with under A, making it certification of the election versus that we have adopted the report, and the certification is defined over here. So, so they're using the word certification of the election on both the top of page 26 and then in A, which makes it consistent. Any other comments on page 27? How about 28? Again, they're using the word polling location here, which I didn't catch before, Cindy. So under A there. Okay, and they use it down here, and I just never picked that up, so that was a good comment. Okay, no comments on page 28? 29. Okay. Page 30, any comments? Okay, page 31. And I do want to comment on page 31 on when it's added 3 different more scenarios as to voter misconduct. I do see that the word intent is used in here. Intent is very hard to prove. Not very hard, extremely hard to prove. And that is the only one, well, number 5 says intentionally makes a false affidavit, so some of them are using the word intent and some aren't. Can you, is that something you can explain, Erica?
I can, thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay.
This language is taken exactly from state law, and so all of our voter misconduct or election official misconduct or all of our, sorry, I'm losing my vocabulary, all of our election offenses are essentially the same with state law. And
Okay.
so that is why we have chosen this language.
Okay.
It's exactly what state law says.
Well, that makes sense. It's not that
But I understand
Not
intent is
that-
very difficult to prove.
I mean, intent is similar to the story that you gave earlier. Was there intent there? Well, no, actually, I just didn't. But yeah, I knew I was voting twice, but I didn't want to say no, or not the forgot thing, but whatever.
Yeah.
So okay, well that makes sense that it's state statute then. Okay, any other comments on page 31?
I would just like to help, this is Cindy Hawkins, help clarify on those 3, 4, and 5 why they might be slightly different, just from my experience with the elections. So you do have the affidavit that you sign on the back, which indicates that you are a qualified voter. So that would be an intentionally signing and submitting a ballot when you know you are no longer a resident of the state of Alaska, for instance. So I think that is probably, as much as anything, why number 4 is there, or 5 is there.
Okay. Any other comments on page 31? Okay, page 32. I have no comments other than the fact I think it's good that they added referendum or recall in there, which is very important.
Madam Chair, I will let you know that we are now deviating from state law in A4 because state law only says initiative, but that didn't make sense to us, so.
True. Okay, and then on page 33, I have a funny comment. Why does it say has finally certified? Under number 3, it says has commenced within 10 days after the assembly. Has finally? Why can't it just say after the assembly certified?
Because, Madam Chair, If there is a recount or an election contest, those take place after certification. So there'll be certification of the election, then there could be a recount and a second certification. There could also be an election contest, and then there could be another certification after that. So it's sort of finally, as in this is the last, there isn't any more options to, for, so
I hear where you're coming from,
When you
yes.
appeal to court, like you've exhausted all your other options to request a recount, to contest the election, and so then your last option is to appeal to court. And so, but you can only do that after the assembly has finally
Right.
done the final certification.
Okay, well, I guess I laughed when I read that because it sounded funny. I know it's under appeals, and so I was thinking, okay, so this would be after all the appeals, but, okay, that's my
That
comment.
makes sense.
Huh?
It makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at it and I kind of laughed, that's fine, okay, fine, you know. I'm sitting at the kitchen table and my husband going, oh, that must have really been funny. I go, well, anyway. I really want to say that I think the Assembly and Barbara's office and our legal attorney for the Election Commission as well did a good job with this. And I feel that a lot of these changes were needed for clarification. Erica, you look like you want to say something?
I apologize, Madam Chair, I didn't mean to jump in. I just wanted to say, if you can hang out for 5 or 7 minutes, I can work up your amendments into a resolution that you can adopt today.
Okay,
Oh,
okay.
So maybe if you want to continue with your comments, I apologize, I again didn't
Okay,
mean to interrupt.
okay.
Just take us off the record here.
Well, we haven't adjourned yet.
Oh, I
So,
see.
are there any other comments from commission members about what's been done here? Cindy, you're a former office worker and,
I'm always pleased when we can clarify even more because it helps the election staff, the clerk's office, and better able to administer an election. And what we've done here today, I have seen in practice on the floor at the election center, so it's nice that it's a part of the document. And I have full faith in our elections, because I know how we conduct our elections here in the state and in the municipality.
and I agree with that. I have definitely thought of Barbara, the city clerk, Barbara Jones, during this presidential election. Granted, she was not involved because the state conducts the election, but I'm sure that she has been, more so than myself, listening to some of the hearings, or some of, the election commissions, if that's, I'll use that generally, whatever the terms are in other states, and different things, but, yeah, this has definitely been an election where we need to look at procedures, so I'm so glad I'm with you that this is being done. And I guess I'd like to put on the record that I think Barbara has done a wonderful job in elections. We have had no issues that I know of that we're seeing now, if I can use that term. And she has just been on top of things and made sure everything runs smoothly, made changes, as Cindy, as you said, from the years, the 3 years that we've had elections. And I don't know, I just have praise for her and her staff. So I just want to put that on record as well. Elaine, do you have anything you want to say? No? Cindy?
Obviously, I have one more comment anyway.
Okay.
In view of the elections that we have witnessed over the election over the last 6 weeks, I think consideration, and I'd like to go on the record, needs to be for informing the public even more about the election process. I don't know how that can be accomplished. I don't know if it's approaching it within the schools so that people know how the elections are run. I personally received comments and questions from family members in Wisconsin on the election processes, and I often suggested that they go to their state offices and ask the questions themselves instead of relying on other places and sources of information. So
Very
as
true.
a state and as a municipality, just to prevent something like this happening to us, I think being proactive and trying to make some kind of an approach toward voting education to our voters. It would help.
I think voter education is so important, very important. And I don't feel that there was a lot of voter education with this election. It was all ads, campaign ads on TV.
Mm-hmm.
I kept every campaign ad that I received in the mail because I wanted to see at the end of the time frame how many I had, and I would swear it was this thick. I put them in a spot in my kitchen, and on a chair that I wasn't using, so to speak, and I'd put them all there, and when the election was over, I'm going, oh my gosh. So that's basically on the other end of it, whereas I agree with Cindy about education.
Yeah, but I think that this COVID has changed the way that the people go out and solicit votes because, they were limited to not being able to go in person.
Mm-hmm.
So they used the mail system primarily. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, just inundated.
And I do want to give a shout out to all of the other states and their election officials because what they're going through is, I've been an election official in Minneapolis, for 16 years. We had an election where a gubernatorial candidate withdrew 3 days before the election, and it caused chaos. And my poor family, I worked 60 days without a day off. And it was, getting ready for the election and then after the election because we had recounts and we had, everything else. So I've been through, not as much as maybe they've been through, but it's very stressful and very hard. So I give them an applause as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, that was good.
Thank you.
That sounds good. I can't think of any others that we did a lot of. You were just going to suggest capitalizing those words?
Yes, I'll add that.
Okay, all right. I'll take a quick look through my notes here. Yeah, that was the only other one that I see so far. Yep, that was it, other than the capitalization there, so. All right.
Actually,
Is there another one?
well, there's, on the sheet that you would sign,
Mm-hmm.
that fax and email, which is, oh wait, never mind.
That was the one we,
That was it, yeah.
that was a good one,
I
yeah.
was thinking it was letter D, and I thought, well, no, it's supposed to be G, but I got it.
Okay. And then we changed that whole heading
Mm-hmm.
to request by the qualified voter, so that was good.
Yeah, that's all I have.
And suggested different for postage paid and picked out the word absentee, so. Okay.
Wasn't there a question on page 3, that primary election?
Well, that's being taken out.
That has been taken out.
Yeah. I just wondered why it was in there, because
Okay,
it's
I
in
see
both.
what you're saying.
I guess my
Okay,
question
yeah.
was, I don't know why that would have been
Yeah.
in there to begin with, so I was just curious why we were removing it, if it meant something, so, okay.
Sorry about missing that.
Okay. Oh, you forgot one. Voter.
Ah, okay.
All right.
I'm gonna correct that, and I will just print one copy for you.
Okay, and we'll,
to sign.
okay. Okay, we now have in front of us, Resolution 2020-2, where it says, whereas, and I won't read all the code numbers, directs the Election Commission to study and recommend to the Assembly and Municipal Clerk proposed ordinances relating to elections. And whereas on December 16, 2020, the Election Commission met to discuss AO 2020-131 amendments to Title 28. Now therefore be it resolved that the Anchorage Election Commission recommends the following amendments. First one is for the definition of muokava, to capitalize the words on which it means, so we're going to do that. B is we were removing the word absentee, which should have been removed and wasn't, so we took care of that. Under C, we are changing postage paid to a term that more clearly states that the voter is to add postage to the ballot return envelopes. We'll let them figure out what they want to do with that if they're going to. And D was to change the whole heading for B under 2860060 to, in order to receive a ballot, the request by the qualified voter must include, which then means everything underneath there is for the qualified voter. And then E, to change the receipt, it should have been on the fax or email, and also remove the word absent. Well, the absentee was already in there, removed. And change it to or instead of and. So are there any comments or questions about this? I do have one that I will sign here with the correct word on voter there. So is there a motion to approve Resolution 2020 by the Anchorage Election Commission?
So moved.
Okay, Glennis has moved. Is there a second?
I second.
Elaine has seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, I will go ahead and sign as the chair. And we will forward this through Erica to both Barbara, the municipal clerk, the attorney, and the assembly. Okay, so we are done with new business. That worked out well. That was a little under an hour. Okay, do we have any member comments?
Just again to thank Barbara and her staff for the wonderful work that they've done and the revisions.
Thank you, Glennis. Anybody else? Okay. No more member comments. Well, I guess I would say under member comments, I want to thank the commission for all their work regarding this. Looking at the ordinance. Okay, if there are no further member comments, we're going to go to public comment. Is there anyone in the public here? There is not. And no one else? Okay, so we have no public comment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Okay, Cindy moves to adjourn. Do we need a second to adjourn? I didn't think so. Okay, we are adjourning the meeting at 2:01.